Hey, I want to let everybody know that Mudbugs is open today through the weekend, and they have the best crawfish in Mississippi, crab legs, shrimp. You hear me talk about the shrimp all the time, but the crawfish drives the train. So whether you want a to-go order, big to-go order, I'm talking, 30, 40, 80 pounds. Okay, 120, whatever, pounds. Or you want to go there and enjoy the atmosphere. They have live music on the weekends. Mudbugs in Brandon, downtown West Government Street, and Mudbugs at the Reservoir on Old Fannin Road. Awesome, awesome crawfish, crab legs, shrimp. Their mushrooms are amazing. And their pulled pork, very underrated, as are the wings, all at Mudbugs, 2 locations in Rankin County. We want to welcome in Steve Robertson, genespage.com, the Boneyard Podcast, 247 Sports. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Steve, I haven't asked you this question in a while, but I know you're always ranking hair bands. Who is so who do you have as the number one hair band of all time?
Well, see, here's the interesting part about that. It's like there's almost categories of all this, right? I mean, so if you want to go authenticity, I mean, I think you go Guns N' Roses, right? If you want to go maybe who had the greatest impact on the Hollywood Strip, you go Motley Crue. But if you want to go just for hair and what kind of typified, Revlon rock, I'd have to say Poison, because there was a lot more image and substance with it, and people just simply ate it up. But I think I'd probably go in that direction. Those 3, I hate to not give you one answer, but I wanted to give a shout out because I know there's a lot of Poison fans in the central Mississippi area, tons of them, tons of them that think that, nothing but a good time is almost like Amazing Grace or whatever. And so I want to be sure that we get that handled. So,
okay, I agree with you on the first 2. Those are my 2 favorite, Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses, without a doubt. Seen them both in concert. I just saw Poison at Pearl River Resort.
I'm sure you did.
Year and a half ago. And look, I thought Bret Michaels and CeCe did a great job. Saw Guns N' Roses for the last time in 2013 in the Superdome, 2014 in the Superdome, maybe 15, somewhere in there. I thought they did a good job. The Colt opened up for them, and that was probably my favorite. I mean, it was a close race in '89 between Crue and Guns N' Roses and the Colt, but they were not good. But Guns N' Roses was damn good. You know what's interesting, Steve, and you've been to a ton of concerts, is, everybody talks about Axl and he's had his ups and downs, but Slash never missed a beat, man. I mean, he's been, even when they broke up, Velvet Revolver and everything else that he's done out in L.A., he's been a baller the whole run. Don't you agree?
Well, I think the best work that Slash has done is actually his work with Miles Kennedy. It's, Slash and Miles Kennedy and the New Conspirators. And I would venture to say that Slash is not a nostalgia act. Like a lot of these bands that are, everybody ran out of money. So now I'm touring casinos so I can pay the mortgage. Listen, I'm happy to see them. Don't get me wrong. But, Slash never went away because Slash was a musician that was in demand. And, Slash has done work with Fergie and Michael Jackson. I mean, he's one of the most iconic guitar players of all time, but, he's not just sitting around playing the hits. This is a guy that's been an artist, for, 40 years now.
Sure. Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds show. We had to get that out of the way. I had to get a little, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, and Poison talk. I saw Poison I saw Bret Michaels alone down in Destin. He was great. That was just a few years ago, too. Okay. Last night was borderline a disaster. What's going on with Tolu Smith? I don't think he's playing, at times he'll score and he'll be productive, but he's not a physical enough player, and I think he just is who he is at this point because he's only got a few more games left. But how disappointed were you with Tolu and Cam's performance last night?
Well, we felt like that's where State may have an advantage was in the post. And at times, it just felt like A&M was just simply denying everything down there. But State got a little bit creative later with it. When they made that big run, I mean, you're down 23. And at that point, I'm ready to just take the TV off the wall and cancel the subscription to cable. It was just an absolute abysmal performance at that point. But then they didn't quit. But no matter how we feel about their effort down the stretch, it's a loss, and it's a loss that I think in many respects Mississippi State could ill afford. Now, the net's being the net, right? I mean, we still think State's in the tournament, but you lose Saturday and then maybe go one and done in the SEC tournament. I think I don't think it works out the way people want it to.
Nope.
I don't think there's any question about it. Now, of course, there's some people out there that have been telling us for a year now that, we're going to be back in the tournament. They're not going to let that narrative go. No matter what happens, right? I mean, you could get beat by 100 and they're going to hang on to it, right? Because they're going to sit here and tell you their personal net rankings, assure them that they're going to get in. But I thought State played well at spots last night, but I thought you needed to come down and be very deliberate and get Tolu involved early. And you look up, he didn't have a basket, for the first, 25 minutes of the ball game.
Can you believe that? 1841 in the, that was going to the line. You're right. I cannot. I would have lost a lot of money, Steve Robertson. I mean, I would have bet thousands. If you'd have called me before the game and said Tolu's not going to score for 23 minutes of the game, I'd have said, how much? One bucket, right?
I don't know if he had a shot attempt, did he?
No, he didn't. What's his name? The color analyst tried to say how great it was that he was actually playing well and making smart decisions. I was going, what planet is this guy on? It's unacceptable, both on his part and Jan's and the perimeter play. But and then Cam with 6 turnovers. So, look, the odds are that these two play better Saturday at home against South Carolina. Basically, this team has one score, and that's Hub. And then you don't really know what you're going to get. You have another kind of score in Tolu. But I think the matchup is okay. South Carolina is much better at the wing position, but that doesn't mean that Mississippi State shouldn't feel like they're going to win at home, right?
Well, I feel like a lot of people believe State should have won the first time, and I'm one of those people. I mean, you got to think Josh Hubbard wasn't Josh Hubbard quite yet then either.
That's true.
But all that I understood, Michie is ridiculous. I mean, from South Carolina, he really makes them go, and so you've got to find a way to make somebody else beat you. But State could have made some free throws in that ball game. It's a much different scenario. I mean, goodness, South Carolina was playing for an SEC championship yesterday. We lost that game early in the year. We're all thinking, this is going to ride us like an anchor the whole year long. Little did we know we'd look up and it'd actually be a quality loss, be a quad one road opportunity. And so now they're coming home. But, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what Ken Palm says. Mississippi State needs to win this basketball game, period. It's like people go, it's going to be okay. We can't project on that. You got to go win games. And that's the last thing you want to do is have your resume before the committee with this losing streak here and then. I don't care who you're losing to. You're losing. They got to go win some games.
Steve Robertson on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Let's switch gears to football recruiting. What is the latest on 5-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham out of Mississippi?
Yeah, I still like where Mississippi State stands with him. And listen, I know there's some agent provocateurs out there that, like to get clicks and things like that. And, I guess in some respects I've done that before too. But the reality of it is Mississippi State and Chad Bumpus and Jeff Levy have done a really good job. The very first meeting that Jeff Levy had as the head coach at Mississippi State with a recruit was at Choctaw County High School. He went to see Caleb Cunningham first. Even though he was a 2025, went to that high school first. That's the way the contact period opened for Mississippi State, with Jeff Levy going to see Caleb Cunningham, and it ended with the entire staff going to watch him play a basketball game. And so they have made him a priority from the moment Jeff Levy stepped on campus. He continues to be a priority. He's not just another guy, right? They have absolutely made him feel like the dude. He's going to work through the process a little bit, but I love where Mississippi State stands with him. He's very close with Stonka Burnside and J.J. Harrell. And, that's the thing that happens is not only these kids commit to a program, they begin to get committed to each other. And it will be a surprise if this young man doesn't sign with Mississippi State.
Okay. Your colleague David Johnson, crystal balled Caleb Cunningham from Rebel, whatever it is, 247 Sports. And he CB'd Caleb Cunningham to Ole Miss after Caleb went to Ole Miss, I think on Monday. What is your reaction to that?
If I could change my confidence level on my pick, I would. I would move it up.
Okay.
I absolutely has no impact whatsoever on my feelings about Caleb Cunningham and Mississippi State. And I think it's just really the opportunity for Caleb to get out and go see some things, and also give everybody a fair look and a fair shake. And he's owed that, right? He's earned that responsibility, that ability to get out. And so, but yeah, I didn't, when you get ready to make the decision, it's like, because what happens late? It's like, well, you never even gave us a chance, right? I mean, and so, no, that has no impact on anything. And, if you want me to, I can go in there and crystal ball a whole bunch of kids to LSU and Alabama, and we'll do some at Jackson State just to have some fun with it, if you want to. But that doesn't have any impact on things. It doesn't change anything. And I think that's one thing in our industry. And listen, I love David. I think David's a guy that does a really good job. But, we've had some people in our industry before. It's like they'll get the whole rivalry thing. And I've been accused of that too. I've never crystal balled a kid to any school that I didn't firmly believe. That's why you never see me put a confidence level of 4 or 5 or 6. If I'm putting them in there, I'm expecting that kid to go there. And I usually put my stuff in there 8, 9, or 10. It's just no point unless you know for sure the confidence level doesn't matter. But I feel great about where State stands with Caleb Cunningham, and that's just not the information that I have, though. It's as simple as that. So,
Choctaw County, Ackerman, Mississippi. Caleb Cunningham, wide receiver. He is the number 1 player in the state, highly, highly rated, and Lebby, Kiffin, among others, are battling for his signature. So isn't Caleb Cunningham close to Camario Taylor?
Oh, yeah. And
quarterback, for our listeners, he is the quarterback out of Noxubee County. Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, and he's still out there traveling, going to these quarterback camps and things like that, just trying to get better as a player. And as a result, his profile as a recruit is just simply getting higher. I mean, I had Andrew Evans hit me up, who is the director of scouting for 247, and he's like, hey, this Camario Taylor kid from Macon, Mississippi is really good. I'm like, yeah, I've only been trying to tell you guys that for a year, But, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, too. With Camario's a guy, too, like, I think once you see him throw in person and see how effortless it is for him, everybody can refine the mechanics a little bit. But this is a guy that was kind of made to be a quarterback. Like, he's just kind of a God-given ability. It's not just an athlete playing quarterback. He's a quarterback. It's a true dual-threat guy. And I think that's what people are really beginning to see, because a lot of kids that commit early lose their hype, right? I mean, because they don't travel as much. But, Camario's out there. And I think everything that's good for Camario is good for Mississippi State. I'm sure he's going to get out and go take some more campus visits. And, he'll go to Central Florida and probably bounce around a little bit. Everybody will freak out. But, I'm not worried about Camario. Camario's a guy that has wanted to be at Mississippi State for a long time. And, he committed to Zach Arnett and his staff. And as soon as Jeff Lebby got here, they made him feel like a priority again. And, he's out recruiting hard for Mississippi State. And I really like him as a person as well. I had a chance to meet his dad at Big Dog Camp a couple of years ago. And, this is a guy that you're going to build your class around. So, yeah, absolutely. He's got a relationship with Caleb Cunningham.
How in the world is he not a top 5 player? He plays the premium position on the field. If you don't have we all know this, if you don't have a quarterback today, you can't compete. How's he not a top 5 player in the state?
Well, I think a lot of it's just, people hadn't seen him enough, right? I mean, it's like, I think that's what's happened now is people are beginning to see this young man in person, and their eyes are being opened a little bit, because again, like you think about it from an outsider's point of view. Okay, Zach Arnett and that staff were under a lot of fire, so they go take a commitment from a guy, that's all. It's a guy just, 40 minutes down the road. This is a headline grabbing effort, right? And so then all of a sudden you begin to realize there's a lot more to this guy, because of the fact that you see what he did down the stretch, on his huddle video, those guys made a deep run. And then in addition to that, now he's out going to these camps. And that's the thing that I've said to people too. It's not like Camario's hiding, right? If there was something, if he was a scratch and dent guy, why would everybody want him on the road? I mean, he's getting invited to all these quarterback camps. He's been out in California. I mean, it's like, Tamario Taylor's out there trying to do what he can to get better as a player, and as a result, it elevates his recruiting profile, which in turn helps Mississippi State's recruiting efforts. But, yeah, he'll be a four-star guy, consensus four-star guy. I think everybody in the industry will have him there. And, he's absolutely a top 5 player in the state of Mississippi. And you got to remember the rankings are the worst rankings we have are the first ones, right? And so as the process goes on, we'll get that fixed. But, yeah, this is not a Will Rogers situation. And I mean that with as much love as I can possibly muster. Will was a guy that, had some limitations, but, had some prolific numbers. And I think Camario is just a guy that is a better prospect than Will was, at least in this modern day of college football. But it's not like he's being handicapped. I guess that's really the point I'm trying to make. It's just there are a lot of people getting eyes on him for the first time.
Steve Robertson talking Mississippi high school football recruiting. Gene's Page 247 Sports. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. So Ole Miss got the better of the two in recruiting this past year. A lot was going on there. Leach passed away. You mentioned Arnett gets the job, and Ole Miss has had continuity with Lane going into year 5. Do you expect a much more balanced as far as guys going to Mississippi State and Ole Miss, whereas Ole Miss got the lion's share of the top 10 last year, Steve?
Yeah, I think you'd have to say that Ole Miss among the headliners was the better of the two schools, and you're right. Continuity plays a big part of that, right? And that's just this is recruiting's about relationships, and I think this year it'll probably be more 50-50. And I'll be honest with you, I said this before. I don't think that defensive line class that we had last year is going to prove to be what people are expecting. I still think Tamarion Franklin's an absolute freak, and I think that kid will play football as long as he wants to if he really works hard and commits himself to it. I think Terrence Sidbor's a guy too that's probably game ready, but there's some other guys out there I could talk you into or out of every other defensive line prospect in the state for last year. I think this year is a little different. I like the depth in this class. But I do think it'll be a year where State and Ole Miss both could probably declare victory in the end, just kind of depending on what their needs are as a program. But I like our in-state talent pool for sure.
And when you're looking, who would you compare Caleb Cunningham to, wide receiver out of Choctaw County?
Maybe DeAndre Brown, out of Ocean Springs. Yeah, I think that's probably the best player come because like everybody says, well, there's DK and there's AJ. Completely different type of player. And I'm not trying to say one's better than the other. That was the thing. I remember saying on your show years ago that I thought AJ was the number 1 player in the state and Jeff Simmons was 2 and DK Metcalf was 3. And I got hate mail for a year about that. And it's like, look what all 3 of these guys have done. It's like when you say a kid's number 2 or number 3, you're not saying he sucks. You're just saying I guess somebody's a little bit better.
Right.
And that's how I see this Caleb Cunningham thing. It's like I don't think the frame is like AJ. I think it's more like DeAndre Brown. I think he is a guy that and might actually have a little better lateral movement than AJ and the DeAndre. But I got my Browns mixed up. But I think Caleb Cunningham is a dude. I think it's an NFL guy, provided he stays healthy and works hard.
Okay.
When you look at this run that the state of Mississippi's had at receiver. At times, guys are overhyped, and I think when you go back and look at AJ and DK, they absolutely were not overhyped, and it had nothing to do with where they went to school. These guys were polished products for the most part. In high school, they just refined it as they began to mature. I think Caleb Cunningham is basically cut from that same cloth. He's a guy that was born to play wide receiver, can play for just about anybody in the country, and it's just going to be about what he does to refine the skill set and get ready to go to the NFL because he is that good.
And you're expecting several battles in the state of Mississippi, right?
Oh, I think it's going to be a fun year to cover recruiting. Last year, like by the time you got to the summer months, there wasn't a lot for State and Ole Miss fans to argue about when it came to recruiting. I mean, there was a couple of guys here or there, but I think by and large, once you got into the season, everybody kind of knew where everybody was going to go. I don't think this year will be like that. I think this year will be a much different scenario, and you'll probably have multiple guys take official visits to both schools, and so probably a good time to renew your 247 subscription.
Absolutely. Genespage.com. Steve Robertson. Thanks, man. We appreciate it, Steve.
See you, bud.
All right. So we hit some basketball and recruiting. We'll do baseball with him next week. Couldn't hit everything, but I thought that was good. So Caleb Cunningham's the number one player in the state, wide receiver out of Choctaw County, and Levy has made him a priority, and Kiffin has made him a priority, and we'll see what shakes out with Caleb Cunningham as the number one player in the state. He's a dude, that is for sure. DeAndre Brown, that's a nice player comp right there. I think anybody will take that player comp. That guy was a freak, athletically and physically.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, the people that Steve was naming where he's covered recruiting for so long, and I mean, you have too, but you don't love shin kicking recruiting sports all the time.
No, I don't.
But
I don't.
The kind of
I
talent,
like that. That's fun.
Right.
I don't need to you're right. I don't need to do an hour and a half podcast twice a week on recruiting. I acknowledge it. Right. Lugan Bill brings a lot of juice. Mm-hmm. Steve, David, that's good for me.
Yeah, but I mean, him saying that comparison, that's not just a grain of salt because he's seen enough players to where he knows if somebody's got some talent.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he does. And Steve actually travels the state, unlike some people who cover recruiting in college towns around here. So he gets out and he's driving the state of Mississippi all the time. And I think there's something to that for sure. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Hey, March Madness, 2 weeks away. I love it. I mean, you can bet on it. You can have friends over. You can have some beverages. You can, cook great meals outside, grill out, watch unbelievable hoops. But what about your TV watching experience and your surround sound experience? Oh, yeah. MSSmartHomes.com. Jake Manning. Dude, I got it in my living room last year before March Madness and before the Masters. The Sonos system, surround sound, and I got it in my man room. It's unbelievable. MSSmartHomes.com. Mississippi Smart Homes. You want to check it out. Have him out. He'll give you a quote. Jake Manning. MSSmartHomes.com. It's also music and movies. I mean, look, I play the music loud on Spotify. Mm-hmm. I'm an empty nester. I'm partying all the time, right? I mean, all I'm doing is walking around in my boxers. Spotify, Motley Crue is on like 88, and that's what you get with MSSmartHomes.com. All right, March Madness surround sound, Augusta National, NFL Draft, movies and music, all powered by Jake Manning and MSSmartHomes.com. And guess what? You can control it all from your phone. I love it. I love it. All right, good morning. Welcome in. We'll have Brad Logan, Ole Miss Insider, at 9:15. Maybe talk a little Zach Arnett to Oxford. He's got I guess he'll be wearing red and blue starting today or tomorrow.
Is that?
I guess he got to throw away all his Mississippi State stuff.
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be weird.
Is that what you do? What do you do with that? Like Mike Mayock, general manager of the Las Vegas Raiders, when he got fired, he took it down to the fire station, and they didn't believe him. He had like garbage bags of it. Think about all the cool gear you get in the NFL and SEC football. And he took it down to the fire station in Las Vegas. Hour number 3 coming up on the Out of Bounds Show. Good morning. Welcome in.